Right.
Right. And the only person that can make or break you is you. The only person that can fail or succeed is you.
Well, let's start with MCG.
Okay.
What is it? What do you do? How many people do you have?
We do small commercial construction, tenant improvements is what it's called. Most people don't know it. You hear people refer to it as a TI. It's a tenant improvement. So if this building here existed and you said, hey, Chad, I'm thinking about getting a building, and I found one where I like the location, but, inside of it's crappy or I need to redo a bunch of stuff, then that's where we would come in and do a tenant improvement for you to make the space what you want. And so that's mainly what we focus on, the smaller jobs. There's a few companies in town that are quite a bit bigger than us. And my goal was to scale it to where we were the small company, where we're the small company and we take care of these smaller clients that might fall through the crack otherwise. If it's not a big dollar job, it's less appealing to most companies. And so we do that, just that, like say your wife wanted to open a hair salon and she had saved up $60,000 to do this tenant improvement and build the salon the way she wanted to. In today's market, that doesn't go very far. Mm-hmm. So I created this company to fill some of those voids. And I'm not saying I can do all of that all the time, but that was the concept, was to take the people who weren't big companies or corporations and give them access to a company that could do their construction at an affordable price.
What kind of range, like you just said, 60 grand, but if there was somewhat of a generic range of like projects from like 50 grand to 200 grand, or like what's kind of that space that you're in?
Yeah. So we try and stay under $1 million for one single project. I do have customers that make us go over that threshold from time to time, and we will do it for existing customers, but we're really geared for speed. So most of our jobs last between 4 and 12 weeks. And the dollar amount in that range usually lands under $1 million.
Okay.
So that's really, most of the TIs that we see probably average 200,000 to 300,000. I would say is the heart of them.
Okay.
But we do a lot of small stuff too, and then we do some bigger stuff. But the heart of it's right in that range.
And are you only doing the improvements? Or are you building any new small commercial?
Ground up work, we have done some in the past, but it's not what I focus on. So again, if it goes away from the business plan, if it's for an existing customer, then we'll typically do it. If it doesn't really fit our business model, then I usually just refer somebody. I know a lot of people in Salem, I always get the whole, hey, can you come to my house and do this? And that's Mike Riddle. Like everything goes to Mike Riddle that's residential. Or there's other people depending on the project. But I try and refer whatever doesn't fit in our wheelhouse. I refer it out to who I think is the best suited person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And how many employees do you have? Like how many?
There's myself and 5 employees.
Okay.
And we do mostly management, so we don't self-perform. Self-perform means that like we go, build the structure, do the framing, or do all that stuff. All that stuff is done by subcontractors. And in commercial, that's typically the case. Like you have management, which is the company, and some bigger companies self-perform certain aspects, like concrete, or they'll do their own framing or whatever. So we do solely management, and depending on the project or depending on the circumstances, we might self-perform certain parts, right? Like if you, in this space, if you're like, well, I'm not going to bring a subcontractor in to hang 4 doors, like my guys will come hang the 4 doors.
Gotcha.
If we have time and it makes sense.
Gotcha.
So whatever is most cost effective and speed and money always are factors in that. So we'll self-perform if it makes sense. If not, then we'll help our subcontractors do it. Okay. So there's 5 of us in MCG, but we work with, probably well over 100 different subcontractors. Yeah. So a lot of access.
And that might be something people that aren't familiar to the construction world, that's pretty common, that it's more project managing, not swinging the hammer. Yep. You're hiring the guys that swing hammers every day.
You got it. And even in residential and in all construction, either you are a business that does all the stuff and then subcontracts what you can't do, or you manage all the stuff and you only self-perform what you're afraid to sub out, right? Yeah. Like, so if you don't have a good finished carpenter, let's say, let's say we're talking about a home builder and he doesn't have a good finished carpenter. He can't find someone. He's gone through a couple subs but just didn't get it. He might hire a guy and perform that trade in-house because it makes sense for his situation. But most of the work done in construction these days is done by subcontractors, by other companies.
Okay.
So,
yeah. How long you been doing it for?
I've been in construction since 2010. I worked with my best friend at the time running a drywall company. I did sales, measuring houses. I actually worked for Mike Riddle.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did his drywall.
Oh, you mean he said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking employee. Okay.
Yeah, so we did. That's where we initially met. Was me out trying to get his account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did that for 7 or 8 years, and then I went to work here in town for a small commercial outfit, doing sales and project management. And I did that for about 2 years, and just realized I didn't want to sit idle anymore. I had to do something different, and so I went to real estate school.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
I got, I don't know, 80, 90% through the school. And then I just decided, like, this isn't my gig. I don't want to do this. And,
you were going to be a realtor, huh?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Yeah. I got 90% done with school, but
That's actually when I graduated college. That's the first thing I did. I got licensed and I was a realtor.
I love real estate. I
Yeah.
love the idea. I just didn't know if that's what I wanted to do with, my ambition, I guess. It just wasn't quite. And all my friends are realtors. I mean, it's a big industry with a lot going on, and I wanted to be a little more specialized in whatever I did.
Plus, knowing you,
yeah.
You're not the guy that wants to have advertisement
No.
all over the place.
Yeah, I don't want my picture on the side of a business card and the side of a bus and the side of no, I don't want any of that stuff. So, I just kind of had a change of heart, and I was working on this project. I was actually building a building down in Albany for a friend when I was working for the last company before I started my company. And he said, "Hey, why don't you start your own company?" And I had some other projects lined up with him in the future. And I said, well, I've actually been thinking about that because I was going to do real estate, decided not to do that. But I really like commercial construction. I really like working with business people. I really like, solving problems. I really like the gratification of starting a project and finishing it fast and being on budget. And so he said, well, why don't you write up a business plan? Let me know like what that looks like, how much money you'd need, go through the motions. I'll see if I can give you a loan to get your company started. So, I spent 2 months, like really, down to the penny, figuring everything out, trying to get, so it made sense to, before you ask for somebody's money, you have to be pretty detailed, right? And so I spent a lot of time putting together this business plan proposal to him, and he looked at it and he was like, wow, this is super fantastic and this is super doable. And about a week later, he called me back and he said, hey, I've got some of my own personal issues that kind of prevent me from being a part of this at this point. Can you wait, or, can we figure something else out? And at that point I'd already like juiced myself enough to know that I was going to do it. Right. And so I had, my house that I'd owned for like 10 years, and I had some equity in the house. And so I just finished fixing it up and put it on the market. And, I had, with that equity, I took, so my initial proposal was like, it was a $200,000 loan to start the company is what I needed in my business plan. So I sold my house, I paid off some medical bills and some debt, got myself debt free. And then I had $40,000 left over. And so I said, okay. So I put the 40,000 on top of the business plan. Like, how do I disperse this? And, I ended up starting with $40,000. And so
wow.
I already had some jobs lined up. Went through and did all the paperwork, got all my licensing, insurance, the bonding, all the stuff, all the logistics of starting a company. Got myself a little office in a buddy's warehouse, built a little 200 square foot office with 2 desks and me and the office manager, and hired my first employee. And then that was in 2017, June of 2017.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's how it started.
How was when you made that decision to jump and do your own thing? Were you more excited? I guess I should ask, were you fearful when you made that decision? sell the house, take the cash you had, let's start this thing? Or
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, you know, when you fear something, if you're paying attention to the details, the surrounding factors, some things just fall into place perfect, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Wow, that was like meant to be."
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen, right? So a few things like that happened, and a few bad things happened, and I figured, well, if it's worth it, the bad stuff's gonna come. Um, I was a little freaked out, but things were kind of on both sides, the good and the bad, were kind of just balancing each other. Um, and I thought, you know, I was 35 years old at the time, and I was like, if I don't do something now, if I can't take the leap and I can't put it all on the line now, like, when am I going to do it?
mm-hmm.
And so I was more motivated and driven than I was scared, but there was definitely some fear in there, but not as bad as I thought it would be. You're just basically taking your whole entire life and everything that you've worked for over the last 15 years, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to let it roll. Like, I'm going to let it ride on red. Let's do this. Right. The cool part is you're doing it on yourself. Right. And the only person that can make or break you is you. The only person that can fail or succeed is you. And so at the end of the day, if I'd failed after a year or 2 years and the 6 months, the only person I could turn and blame is me. Yeah. So that part of it, like, if you're a confident person, you know, that can work to your advantage. If you're not a confident person, then this, you know, being a business owner is not for the faint of heart. Yeah. I think everybody that owns a business knows that. It's
So you mean it's just not, the money's not just rolling in and there's no challenges and
well, that's the other thing. I mean, money is a factor in business, right? Like, usually you want to change your circumstances when, like, I want to start a business because I want to buy a house, or I want to start a business so I can afford to go on a vacation, or I want to, you know, I want to make more money and I want to create more opportunity. The problem with that is some people think that if they do a certain task or do, like, start a certain company, this one makes a lot of money, right? Like, I'll start a coffee shop because I'll just sell a bunch of coffee and I'll be rich like all the coffee shop owners. The problem with that is if you don't have any desire or passion to do that, it's going to fizzle really quick and fail really quick. So when I started the company, I really didn't have any goals. Like, I want to get to this big and I want to have this and I want to have this many employees. My thing was, actually, I reverse engineered it a little bit. I said, I don't want to ever go over this many employees. I don't want to ever go over this dollar amount. I don't ever want to take on these kinds of jobs, so that I knew what my specialty was. With doing that, whatever the fruits of that labor are what they are, right? So if I make $10 that year, or I make $100,000 that year, that's a byproduct of what I put into the company and what the company produced, right? So I don't do it necessarily for the money. The money is nice when you make money, but that's not always the case. I do it because I like what I do. And I would say we turn down as many jobs as we take. So I want to stay in my lane and do what I know how to do best, so that the person that I'm serving is getting the most that I can offer. And if it's out of my wheelhouse, I can't help that person. I'm just going to tell them, like, hey, I'm not your guy. I'm just not cut out for it.
I think that's really important, especially with you contractors. With me being tied to that space a little bit too, and also in the past, I know for us, we started to kind of get outside of our lanes when jobs were just rolling in and it was like there was just work everywhere. We started to diversify. Oh, we could probably do that. And we could probably do that. And because we were just trying to make that money, and now experience going through that and thinking about what you're saying. That's really important, that, like, you have identified, here's the space I want to be in. Here's what I know that I can execute and be really good at. And then, you know, other stuff I'm going to turn down. Because I think that that for a lot of people, that can be difficult to turn down the money. Yeah.
Like, it's all about the money.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, if your direction is not, if the first priority is not the money, and the first priority is doing something that you like, and then somebody sidetracks you and says, hey, but you can come do this project and make way more money. If it's not what you like to do, don't do it. Like, you're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing them a favor, and then you're getting out of your wheelhouse. And now the people that count on you, that know what you provide, you're not there for them, right? You're being distracted from what you set out to do. I've just found that whatever I did where money was not the focus, I've always found the most success. And every time it was about the money, there was more mess than success. And I just don't have time for that anymore in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my 20s, it was cool. Not cool anymore.
Your desire and love for what you do, where do you think that came from? Have you always kind of been in the construction space? Do you come from did your dad or parents do construction, or how'd you get into?
Not really. My grandfather was a carpenter, and so he was always working in the shop and building things. It always interested me, watching things being built. But I think I got my first full-time job. I was 16. I used to work at Salem Angels downtown, where they did baseball gloves and hats and 24J. We had all the school accounts, and we'd supply all the PE stuff that you'd use in PE. I worked there, and then the batting cages in West Salem, bases loaded. So I worked there for 4 or 5 years, and I went into sales. I worked in the cell phone industry actually for 10 years accumulatively in call centers and retail sales. I sold cars for a year.
I've always kind of wanted to sell cars, to be honest.
I wanted to do it for a year. That was my goal. Just 1 year, and I want to be salesman of the month 1 month. That was my goal when I went into it, and I did it. And then when I did it, I never wanted to go back.
Really?
That was enough for me, right? I got the taste. I understood it. But that 1 year was more than enough for me, because you're married to that dealership for 24 hours a day, every day of the week, right? There is no you. It's the dealership. You might as well just change your name to whatever dealership you work at, is, in my experience, is the way that went down. So
I've dreamt about, because obviously I have my other stuff going on, but I've if it was possible that I could just work a couple hours a week at a dealership, just because I like cars, and I like talking about cars, or let's go test drive cars. Man, if I could just work 5-10 hours a week at a dealership, sell a couple cars. Yeah. Selfishly, I've always thought that could be fun, but I know that's not how it works.
No. And it's one of those jobs. It has a really bad rap. That all car salesmen are crap, and they're going to screw you over and steal money from you and lie to you and do all this stuff. And part of that appealed to me, that whether or not you could be successful in that industry and not be slimy about it. Right. And there definitely are dealerships that aren't slimy and that just do everything above the board. And there's definitely businesses that operate like that, because that stereotype came from somewhere. Mm-hmm. The cool part is there's some sales skills that you'll never learn in another job like you can learn in car sales. I mean, you don't get to pick your demographic or your customer or what type of customer they are. You get whatever walks through the door is what you get.
That's true.
And the cool thing about that dynamic is their needs are all different, right? So nobody comes in with the same need as everybody else. They're buying that piece of transportation for a reason, so you have to figure out what that is and then try and marry the two together. Mm-hmm. So there's some sales skills that you can learn selling cars that you can't learn in other jobs, in my humble opinion, and that was part of the appeal for me to go do that, was to learn that. But I did car sales for a while, and then I went directly into running the drywall company with my buddy. It was his company, and he kind of wanted to legitimize it. So he was out doing the work and had a couple guys working with him. And then he's like, I want to have crews, and I want to, go get accounts and do all this stuff, and you can do the sales. So that's what we did. And we built that company up. And then, my goal at that point in my life, I wanted to build houses. I wanted to get out of drywall, and I wanted to go build houses. And we had always talked about that, and that never came to fruition. I really honestly got bored doing the same thing over and over again. And then when I quit that job, somebody had heard that I'd quit that job that I'd worked for, and that was the commercial company I went to work for a couple of years. And I really like commercial. When I did that for the 2 years, he basically set me out and said, go do sales, get accounts, run your jobs, make your bids, do it all. I don't want to do your work for you. So I was kind of like my own little entity inside this company. And so I went out and did it. And I just found my stride and hit the floor running.
When you're doing those type of sales, how are you cold calling people, or I'm just trying to think, who do you know who to talk to in the commercial space? Yeah, how do you find those clients, or how do you find like the guy that does own that commercial building? Or
So for me, when I worked at the commercial company before I started my company, I was bringing in friends that were business owners.
okay.
And so, or clients that would call and ask us to bid on something. So that's typically how this industry works, is that, River City Insurance is moving to Salem to open up a Salem office. They found this location over off 12th Street. It's 2,000 square feet. And then, they're going to get a loan to do a TI and make it their office. And then the bank goes to the bank, and the bank says, well, I want 3 contractors. And then however your network works, whether it's,
Gotcha.
Somebody, or you talk to your banker, you talk to your real estate agent or whatever, they refer you to the 3 companies, and then those 3 companies say, yeah, we'll come bid it and give you a bid.
Gotcha.
So a lot of those relationships are formed out of the network that you have with commercial real estate agents, with bankers,
Okay.
with all that. They're usually coming to you.
Okay.
But in my case, when I started my company, most of the work that I started out with was work of friends. So, people that I knew or had personal relationships, they're my friends, and they said, I got this coming up. Do you want to build it? Yeah. And so on and so forth. Since I've started the company, we actually only work off of referrals. So I don't do any direct like advertising. I don't do commercials. My website's a GoDaddy basic website. I hardly ever update my Facebook profile, the company one. I try and keep it really simple. We, put our logos on our trucks, and I used to put signs out in front of jobs until COVID hit, and then I decided not to do that anymore. So really, we just have our trucks driving around, and then you see people wearing our sweatshirts, and I'm like, oh, those guys, and that's really the only advertising we do.
Yeah.
But in our industry, it's very business professional. So if you own all the Safeways in town, and I work for you, and I've done all your construction, and your buddy owns Albertsons, and he's like, hey, I need a construction guy to come do this for me. He'd be like, oh yeah, my buddy Chad, he'll take good care of you. And that's how our work really just rolls into the next one. The other thing I really try and focus on is Google reviews. I was, at the end of a job, I'd just send somebody an email and say, hey, if you could just take 5 minutes, I don't care if you just click on how many stars you think we are, or if you give an explanation, but if you could just tell us what your experience was like, so that when a customer says, well, how do I know I can trust you? They can go on to our Google reviews and read them. And so we found pretty good success with that.
Okay. I haven't really, for River City, we haven't put a ton of energy into Google, but I have another friend that I think like buys some Google
generator,
and it seems like for her space, like it's been helpful for her space.
Yeah, there's
with referrals.
There's companies that you can actually pay that will optimize everything for you, so that you get more Google reviews, and if somebody types in, insurance, that you pop to the top of the Google page. We don't do any of that, but there is some organic way to do that, and that's for people to leave you Google reviews, authentic, like real Google reviews that'll optimize you without paying somebody to go in there and figure out formulas and algorithms.
Gotcha.
And so that's the approach we've taken.
Okay.
So I just really advertise on the trucks and advertise our Google reviews, and then everything's referral based. So it's worked pretty good so far.
You got some cool trucks.
Yeah, thanks. Like I said, it's our only form of advertising. So
hey, it's smart because I know you, but if I didn't know you, I would still know of you.
Yeah.
I'm a car truck guy, but
we only have, there's only 5 of us, and we have 4 or 5 trailers and a couple pieces of equipment. We usually have 5 trucks on the road, but we do drive around. A lot of our work is in the Salem area, and we drive around a lot. So I just basically let the guys drive whatever they like. Like, everybody has a preference. Are you a Ford or a Chevy or a Dodge guy? Like, I don't care what you drive, as long as it looks nice and you take care of it.
Yeah.
Put wheels and tires on it, make it look nice, and then we'll put the company logos on it. And with that, some people like to change cars a lot and some people don't. So We change cars a lot. It makes us look like we have 100 vehicles on the road, but we have 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is funny though.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot more of them.
At one point, I did have 9 employees, and in my original business plan, it said never 10 employees, right? So I got all the way up to 9, and five's a lot better for what we do, and for me, for my mental health, to stay at 5
Gotcha.
is a lot more doable.
Gotcha.
So at one point we did have more trucks on the road, but now there's only 5 of us.
The wraps, they also look really good too. I mean, just what you put on the trucks, they look really good, so they're noticeable.
Yeah.
Which shout out to Noble Works.
Yeah.
Ariel, we'll have to
Thank
have
you.
him on.
Yeah, they do all of our spot graphics on the vehicles. And then the current truck that I'm driving, he wrapped the whole entire vehicle and then did spot graphics on it.
That video was rad.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah. We did I think he finished that like a month and a half ago, and it took the guys that did the photos and the videos to edit those. It took them like a month. I mean, there was a lot that went into it. They had my truck for like a whole day. It was a big ordeal, and I thought, oh cool, I'll have these pictures back in like 2 or 3 days, and it was like a month later, like, but it was worth the wait because they did a really, really, really good job.
I will say, I actually thought about that now that I'm in this space where it's camera, lights, microphone, like, when I was watching that video, I mean, even people that are watching this now will be like, oh, they, not much to that, couple little this, that. But when I was watching that video, I was thinking, man, they put a lot, because they got someone tracking it down the road. They went out into the forest.
Yeah.
There was multiple different angles. It seemed like there was some drone work in there, if I remember right. But there's a lot that goes into that stuff.
Oh, just the editing alone. Like, my wife does a lot of photography and editing. And I was like, why does she spend so much time on one picture? Like, can't you just like put a filter on it and click some buttons and like, so I tried to edit one photo in Photoshop, or one of the programs she has, and it was like the most intense thing I've ever done. It took me like 45 minutes to edit one photo. So then I look at that and I have a whole new level of appreciation for what those guys do with videos and photos, and it's a crazy amount of work to get the photo just the way it needs to be.
Yeah.
So, but they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah.
Do you have any buddies that sell cars? I was just thinking, like, I need to have a car person on here. Because like you said, and I mean any industry, insurance, contractors, we all are known as slimy. Like, there's at some point there was a reason that attorneys and contractors and insurance people and car, but obviously that's a stereotype. But I was just thinking, I don't have any contacts that are car people, but I would love to kind of hear, like, because for me, I've always been like, hey, it'd be fun to go sell some cars. But you're like, man, there's a lot more that goes into it. And then also the angle of learning how to sell, like, that process. There's kind of nothing like it, because you have no idea what the prospect looks like when they're coming in.
Yeah.
What their desires are, what their finances. I mean, you might have someone I got cash. You might have someone that can barely make a payment. You have no idea.
Or somebody that comes in and says, oh, I can buy any car on this whole entire lot if I wanted to, and then you pull their credit and it's like 400, and you're like, no, you actually can't buy any of this stuff.
Exactly.
There was a term when I was selling cars, buyers or liars.
Yes.
And that was like, I was like, what a mean thing to say. And then after about 2 days of selling cars, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, that makes perfect sense. I actually have a lot of friends that sell cars, and with the way the current car market is, because they're inventory, you can't get new cars, I buy cars pretty much everywhere. We're always looking for trucks. One of my buddies up in Portland, Platinum Motors, Jeremy Rupert, I've done quite a few deals with him, but I don't have really one place. I've done some deals at Withnell. I've done some at Skyline Ford. I just bought a truck from Skyline Ford, actually.
Okay.
Bought a new truck from them, ordered it in. It took 7 months to get a truck, which was absolutely insane. You used to be able to order that and have it in like 5 weeks. And they're not even letting you order new trucks right now. But
really?
Capital Auto Group, I've done a few deals with Capital Auto Group out on the Parkway.
Well, we'll get someone on here. Someone will be watching that'll say they'd come on here.
Yeah.
So with the climate with autos, What is the driving? Is it the chip that goes into automobiles that is slowing production? Like, why is everything?
Oh, I
Like,
don't
why is a used vehicle more expensive than a new? Like, I hear
because
these
there are
weird.
no new.
So that's why. So you
Yeah,
can't get a new
yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
it's making the demand for the used.
So like in my most recent, I can't speak to the whole industry, but I can talk about what I've learned in my most recent purchase. I bought a Ford Raptor, and the Ford Raptor at one point was the chip shortage, right? So they had all these brand new trucks sitting in this field, wherever, Dearborn, Michigan, or wherever they make them. They had them sitting in a field, Texas. They had another field, I think, where they're just sitting there and they had no chips for them. Well, during the whole COVID thing taking place, there's certain parts and pieces that are missing, right? Like the tailgate applique is one of them. Adaptive cruise control is another one. So there's parts and pieces. So they could build like 90% of the truck, but then they didn't have the other 10 to put all the final touches on it. And with a Raptor, it's a very the standard package is very like set in stone, right? Well, so now what they've done is they've just started deleting those things. They say, oh, the new trucks don't have ambient lighting, or they don't have a tailgate applique, or they don't have the the little pull down step in the bumper. So there's certain things that are getting delayed or deleted.
Gotcha.
But most of it has to do with manufacturing. People not
Okay.
being able to get what they used to be able to get in the same time frame. Shipping obviously plays into all that.
Yeah.
So the car market, from what I've experienced, is there are no new cars coming in. So if you want to go buy a new car, that's kind of out the window. And if you do find a new car, you're going to pay through the nose because the dealer markup on it is so high. Well, because they can't get them either, right?
There's not many of them.
Yeah. And so it's forced people to go in and buy a used car. Well, then when you go and buy a used car, it's, 30% more than it was a year ago or a year and a half ago.
Right.
But you also get 30% more for your trade. So it's like the real estate market.
Right.
Like,
right.
well, I don't understand why I can't go buy whatever car I want. Well, can you do that with the house? No. Oh, you can't. That's right.
Right.
And if you sell your house, you get more, but then you have to go spend more.
Right.
In the same market, right?
Right.
So cars and real estate really kind of mirror each other right now, to be honest.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. I feel like we've covered.
Do you want to hear the bad stuff? You don't want to ask me the bad stuff?
Yeah, I do want to hear the bad stuff.
Ask me the bad stuff.
Will you share the bad
It's all
stuff?
glitz and glamour.
It's all Raptors and
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, as a business owner and you employ people, and I mean, what could be some of like the full picture of what it takes to do all those things? And
Yeah. Being an employer is the single most difficult thing that you can do in business, is being an employer, to maintain balance, right? Like how do you maintain balance between your employees and your customers and yourself and your mental sanity? How do you keep that like level? Right. So when I started MCG in 2017, I mean, I was a kid in a candy shop. I loved every second of it. It was new. It was, untouched. It was just every day I woke up excited to go to work. And as you get further down the road, you run into different problems, right? Or the bigger you get, or the more money that comes in, the more taxes, the more fees, the more you've got to raise your insurance, and then your premium goes up, and new taxes are introduced. You have all these things that are like the red tape that surrounds you running and operating a business that costs you money. But then you have what's actually happening during the day, which is this job and this problem and this fire to put out. And then you have your employees or your subcontractors. In my case, we work with a lot of subcontractors, so it's not always employee, but a subcontractor really is like an employee for us, right? Like we work with them all day, every day. And so if you have a guy on the job that's smoking a cigarette inside the building, like, who would have thought when I started this company that I'd have to walk into a building and see somebody that is a subcontractor that I employ, or one of their employees, that I'd have to tell them not to smoke a cigarette in a building.
right.
Like, well, my brain doesn't work that way. Like, I just want to go over there and like throw them off a cliff, right? I don't want to like, hey, don't smoke in the building. That's not nice. Like, I want to throw them off the building. And so you have the day-to-day stuff, but the employee aspect is a little bit different, because with an employee, you obviously create a personal bond with that person, right? You spend all day. I spend more time with my employees than I do my wife or anybody else. Like, I'm with my employees all day long. And so you care about them and you want what's best for them. And you don't always see eye to eye, and you don't always agree on what decisions are made, and you don't always agree on how things got done. And to maintain that to where everything stays even keel, and that employee likes that employee, take yourself out of the equation. Now, like, well, what about the personalities between the employees themselves, right? Or between the employees and the subcontractors? It is just such a hard dynamic to balance. I've always tried to treat my employees like, if you're employed at MCG, like, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how can the company take care of you to make your life better, right? So what can we do? You're helping the company succeed. How can the company help you succeed? And so I've had my ups and downs, man. I mean, I've gone to the bottom and the top and everywhere in between. In 2019, I think is when we were talking about how I got to 9 employees. I was at the peak. I was kind of at the peak of as big as the company ever got, dollar wise and employee. And, but I was having a nervous breakdown. Like, I was having a real tough time. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't feel good. I gained a bunch of weight. There was nothing about my life that was good other than, like, I go to work and, like, get stuff done. I started taking anti-anxiety medicine. Went to the doctor and said, hey, I got to do something. My blood pressure's up. Like, and it's, it's work. It's me being consumed by everything that's going on in my business. And so I got on this medication, and I took that for, I don't know, almost a year. I took that anti-anxiety medication. And if you've ever taken it, it's basically the same as an antidepressant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've ever taken it, I mean, it literally just dulled my whole entire world. It took the focus, it took the sharp, it took all of it and just made it dull. And, I just remember one day sitting in my chair and thinking, like, if there was a fire night, right? Like, if a fire started right now, would I even get out of this chair? Like, that's how dull I felt.
Really?
One of the things on the bottle that says don't drink while you're taking these pills, right?
It does say that.
Yeah, I think I read it wrong because I thought it said drink double. And so I never stopped drinking alcohol while I was taking this medication. And my drinking got progressively worse each month in taking this stuff. And finally, in the last, like, 5 or 6 months of me taking that medication and drinking, I would drink like 4 or 5 beers and, like, fall down, black out. I mean, just like crazy stuff would happen to me. I drank since I was little, or in my youth, and here I am, and I can't even drink 4 beers without, like, blacking out and not remembering what happened. Long story short, in 2019, January 12th, 2019, January 10th of 2019, I got into a car accident, drinking and driving by myself, and I got a DUI. And I just remember, like, I got so pushed into, like, feeling alone and just kind of, like, away from everything, like nothing could go right. And I'd let my drinking evolve into something where it consumed me. I'm taking this pharmaceutical medicine that's consuming me. And it was affecting my marriage, it was affecting my relationships, it was affecting everything. Everything was just negative. It just kind of, like, sprinkled negativity on anything that I touched. And all I did was work. Right. And I was like, well, that was always my excuse. Well, I'm just too busy. I just work all the time. Just leave me alone. Just let me drink. Just let me go do this. So anyway, I got the DUI, and one of my best friends has actually been in sobriety for, I think he just had his 18-year anniversary.
Wow.
I called him the next day and I said, I want to give the boot to the alcohol. And I think when I made that phone call, everybody thought, like, oh, he's doing this because he's going to get a DUI and he has to do, like, he has to go to, like, certain amount of classes. He has to do this stuff.
Right.
And maybe even at that point, I thought I would do that too. But something inside me just said, like, I just need to change. I need to evolve, right? I need to change. I can't continue like this. It's not going anywhere. It's not good. It's not good for me, my employees, not good for my customers, for anybody, for my family, for my wife. And so I quit drinking, and I'm about 2.5 years in. I haven't had a drink since that accident happened. And that was the single best thing that's happened to me in business. Like today, my focus, my sharp, dealing with problems, I just kind of feel like I'm floating through everything. Like, okay, doesn't matter how bad it gets, I feel like I can handle it. And one of my buddies, he says, taking life head on. Like, you don't need the medication, you don't need the drugs, you don't need alcohol, you don't need anything to soften the blow. Like, take life head on, right? And so that's really been my story for the last 2.5 years. But it got really ugly. I mean, it got ugly. I honestly, I probably should have that night. I probably should have just died in that car. Like, if you were to change something 1 degree or change, I could have easily died in that car wreck that night. And it was a bit humiliating, but in the back of my mind, I needed something terrible to happen to get me out of where I was at and say, you gotta revamp, you gotta start over, you gotta get a fresh look. And so, I've tried to do that ever since, and it has really changed the way that I do everything. But I got low, and it was because I wasn't used to that kind of pressure. I wasn't used to the business is a 24-hour a day job, right? You hop out of the nice truck and everybody says, "Oh, it must be nice." Yeah, it must be nice. Like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, you're not working. I know that, right? I am. Like, 24 hours a day, you're working. I go on vacation. I take my laptop. My phone's on me. Like, I'm working, but I enjoy my work. I'm not working for somebody else. I'm working for me. Like, I'm working for my customer. So I enjoy what I do. But I guess the moral of that story is the stress and the pressure, and especially for personality like mine, I'm a yes man. Like, I don't say no to people. If I can help somebody, I'm going to help somebody. So sometimes I put more on my plate than I can handle. And when I got to that point about 4 years into business, I literally was at my weakest point, and just whatever, like, it didn't matter. I was just waiting for something bad to happen, and just falling apart at the seams. So, it's not all rainbows and princesses and cupcakes. That's for sure.
It's so ironically, you sharing that yesterday, my buddy Willie was in here, and part of his story was he was coaching basketball here at North Salem and finding a lot of success. Actually had just come off Coach of the Year award. And then he had a buddy that was in town that was playing in the NBA at the time, but up in Portland. And he and Willie drove home and blacked out and got in a hit and run, but doesn't remember that he hit, so he didn't understand that he ran. Assuming I'm telling this appropriately.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And assuming I'm hoping I'm doing his story justice. I believe that's my understanding of it. And so he got fired from, like, he's like kind of like finding all this success, but then he loses his job. Obviously everything that comes along with getting a DUI and driving and whatnot. He was humiliated, because great dude, never had an issue with alcohol before, like to that extent. And just interesting how those, I don't know, it almost like that success pressure, like, and then trying to release it somehow, and it's just ironic you're sharing that, and his story is almost identical of, like, he was finding all this success, but he didn't really speak to, I think he was just having fun with his buddies drinking. But he just said, a lot of people have probably driven when they shouldn't have. And I was like, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
but he talked about his faith and how God wanted to get his attention, and how, because I think he spent a little time in jail because of it, and how, wow, that stopped him and really made him think about what does he want to do and with his life, and how does he want to live it and represent it. And I think he said he hasn't drank since then either, or maybe just a little bit. But just interesting, like how from the outside, someone would look at Coach of the Year, or you said biggest year you had, most employees, and you just don't know what people are really dealing with, and the stress and whatnot. And then unfortunately, myself including, doing self-destructive things. So
when you don't know how to when you don't know how to like positively deal with pressure or stress and anxiety, and depending on your personality type, if you don't know what to do with that, it's most likely going to be destructive, right? And if you go the destructive route, I got to a point where I was just like so anxious and depressed that I just didn't know, like nothing really mattered, right? And then taking that medication on top of it just kind of made it like, well, who cares if the building catches on fire? I'll just sit here. Like, who thinks that way? That's not a rational thought, right? After getting my DUI, I will tell you, if I didn't have the means and the personality type to get myself through it, like getting sucked into that system, I mean, once you get in there, they really want to keep you locked up in that thing. Like, I don't know why. I can't speak to the reasoning behind it, but I had the means to pay for it, and I had the means to take, 2 hours out of my day for 3 months to go do all the diversion and I did all the stuff that I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it took it out of me. Like, that would be really difficult if you had a job where you made minimum wage and you couldn't take time off work. And I don't know that you'd ever get out of that system.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole nother set of, that's when I got in there. I'm like, okay, cool. I really screwed up my life. I got to start over. I got to do this all over again. I got to mend all these relationships. I need to actively participate in some sort of recovery. I go to AA meeting every Sunday. And honestly, some of those people have become...
You still do?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I go every Sunday. The problem with people that drink and use drugs, I didn't do drugs, but the people that you typically is that they forget, right? Like, oh, that was really bad and that sucked and I did that really bad thing, or it cost me this or it cost me that. And then you go down 2 weeks on there and I was like, that wasn't that bad. Like, it doesn't hurt as much today as it did 2 weeks ago. For me, I'm really good at forgetting my mistakes. I'm not like, if I tell you something great about myself, I can remember that forever, right? I'll tell you everything great about me, but my mistakes, like if I made a mistake, I can forget about it, or I did something wrong, I can forget about it. And so for me, going every Sunday morning is kind of like my reset, put things in perspective. What's important in life? What am I doing? What am I focused on? Am I taking the right amount of time for myself that I need to be taking away from the business and putting that towards something productive? Or am I just sliding back down the hill to where I'm going to get out of control again?
Yeah.
So, I've been going to recovery meetings. I pretty much go every Sunday. Some Sundays it doesn't work out, but I pretty much go every Sunday. And some of my best friends that I hang out with all the time are all in recovery. Your whole dynamic of life changes when you like, oh, I don't drink. You'd be surprised. Try it for a month and let me know how many of your friends don't talk to you for a month. But
yeah, I mean, to be honest, me and Adrian, we've actually been having that conversation recently about alcohol, and we usually look back and go, well, it was a lot of money, and it was fun for a short period of time, but now we don't feel good the next day, or I don't know. We've actually been having the conversation of just not drinking at all, just taking that off the table. And I've actually thought about what you're saying, like what that social group would look like, because you get used to like seeing certain people at certain places.
Yeah.
And then, not necessarily saying they wouldn't understand or they're not going to be your friends or whatnot, but it definitely would change. Like, I don't really go there. I don't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to change some things.
You have to change your surroundings to an extent, right? Obviously you don't want to be putting yourself in a situation where it feels uncomfortable for yourself or for somebody else. But when you stop drinking and you start just going back through life the way it was, a golf tournament, to dinner with some friends, to, I mean, pretty much anywhere you go, there's alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to an event just recently where the event hosted more than like 1,500 people that that were in attendance, and they had this bar full of liquor, right? And there's 2 lines going to this thing, and probably 100 feet long. And I get in this line and I wait, and I get up there. I'm like, hey, do you have anything non-alcoholic? Like, do you have anything, right? Nothing. Literally nothing. And there's nowhere in this building to drink anything. You either get warm water, which I hate warm water, or you can have an alcoholic drink. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we're in a place that most people have traveled to this town from their home, so they're at least 15, 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
You have 1,500 people in this building. They're eating dinner, right? There's kids. There's people of all ages in here. And your only option is anything alcohol that you can think of, or warm water, bottled water. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, before I would have just thought, sweet, I'm in the bar, I'm going to get 2 beers.
Right.
I'll have one in each hand. This will be fantastic. And I'll go get dinner, and then I'll bid on some stuff.
Right.
But, it changes. It's so socially acceptable.
Yeah.
For us to just get into that rhythm, and then, hey, it's dark outside. I'll drink a beer. It'll make me feel better. Yeah. Hey, it's sunny outside. What would make sunny better? Pour a beer on it. I'm golfing. Oh, got a drink.
Right.
I'm doing yard work. I got a drink. And
right.
so the cool thing about alcohol is it doesn't matter what you're doing, it'll make it better, right? If you're bad and sad, it'll make you forget. If you're happy and having a great time, it'll make it even better.
Yeah.
And I fell victim to that training of thought and not realizing what was in front of me.
Yeah.
And it cost me pretty dearly. Luckily, my family still loves me, and my wife stayed. She still loves me too.
Good.
I think. I don't know. You might have to edit that.
Shout out. Yeah, we'll ask her later.
Yeah, but that was, whenever anybody says, "Oh, that must be nice."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story I think of. I don't think of like, how much money did the company make last month, or can I go buy that watch, or can I go buy that, or go on that vacation? I don't think about that stuff. I think about, like, you got to get in the mess before you find success, and that's 100% true. You're not rarely gonna talk to somebody that has found any level of success without the dirt, right? You got to get in the dirt.
Yeah,
it's what makes people tough.
And I think I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't know that about you.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, I thought you knew.
No, I mean, I didn't. No, some of it, like, I might have thought I knew, but I mean, until I hear it from you, so I appreciate you sharing that. But I think that story is important. I think that's the important stuff, talking about, you can have success or run businesses or whatnot. But there's also challenges, and they're different kind of challenges, and it is never A to B. No. It is never A to B. And when you see people out there that are, succeeding or whatnot, it hasn't always been that way, and they have challenges too. Yeah. And I mean, that night, like, you could have died. Yeah. And so you're at the height of MCG, and then,
in my life at that point.
I mean, to everyone else, like, you got it. And you could have lost your life and so then all the stuff wouldn't matter. Yeah. Wouldn't matter at all.
No. And it would be quickly forgotten too. Like, that's the other thing is, I was taking life for granted, for sure, at that point. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about today, or being alive, or having a family, or all of the blessings that I have in life. I was just thinking about me, poor me, poor me, poor me. Yeah. I can't deal with this. And like I said, best thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, it was the great reset of my life. Like, push the button, let's start over. Can you do this? And sobriety has been awesome. It's been absolutely amazing for me. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's helped my business, my family, my friendships. And just every level of it's been awesome. And I never would have thought that, if you would ask me 5 years ago, like, hey, would you ever stop drinking? I'd be like, no. Why would I do that? When it's crappy, I pour some alcohol in it. When it's great, I pour some alcohol in it. It just makes everything better. Yeah. but it's funny how life, teaches you lessons. Like I didn't expect any of that to happen. I didn't expect any of it, but you got to go through the mess.
Yeah.
I went through it for sure. And everybody that I talked to that's been through the mess, whether their success comes in relationships or in businesses or in money or whatever whatever you define success is, most of the people that have gotten really messy that I know that are in my life are really successful in my mind. And that means a lot to me. Like there's no easy lesson, right? Like when I was parenting my son, his whole life, it was never, no, you can't do that. I was like, yeah. You can do that if you want to. You have option A, B, and C. Let me tell you the consequence of A, B, and C. So I can go do that. That was A, if you want to do it, but the consequence, you decide, right? And even if he picks A and everybody's like, well, you can't let him do that. It's like, yeah, I can let him do that because there's no better lesson for him to learn than to learn it himself. I can tell him a million times, but until you've gone through that mess, it's not going to mean anything until you've done it. And it's the same for business in my mind. Like if somebody started a business, you can relate it to like the people that went and, created an NFT. They had $600 in their bank account. It was the most money that's ever been in their bank account. They created an NFT and now they're a billionaire. Yeah. And people are telling me, that's not fair. That's not fair. And it's like, it's not going to last. Yeah. Like, what did they do to earn it? It doesn't mean anything. It's just numbers. It's just paper. It's just whatever. It's just a thought. Like the people that have gone through the mess and got in the trenches and done all this stuff, those are the people that are going to make it last and make it sustainable. Yeah. Right. And especially in construction, like 2010, that wiped out 80% of the realtors and the real estate market in general, and 80% of the contractors in this town. I mean, I was in construction at that point. It was like there was a plague, and trailers were for sale, and everybody's tools were for sale, and air compressors and all the stuff that had to do with construction was for sale on Craigslist. And nowadays you can't even buy a trailer for the, you have to refinance your house to buy a stupid little dump trailer. Right. It's crazy, but you definitely have to get messy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like that key part of how you used to cope with the stress. So like you're talking about like, being a business owner, it's good, but it's also tough. And that part, was weighing you down, even though you were doing great. And then here's some of the stuff, how you were, medicating. So now that you don't drink, because I'm just trying to think, like for someone watching, they're thinking like, what does he do now? Or how do you cope with that? Or do you just put things in place in terms of, because it sounds like a lot of the business was kind of getting you down because there was so much going on. Yeah. So because it's not just not drinking, it's also, it sounds like you scaled back a little bit. Yep. Or I don't want 9 employees. The business plan always said never 10. Yeah. I want to be small. Like me and Olga, we've talked about like, as we're, growing this, we kind of want to stay a smaller size and not, because we hear these stories, we see and we're thinking, oh, we don't want to take on all that. No. Like we're actually kind of nervous when we hire our first person because we got to take care of them. We got it, like they're part of the team now. So, we've kind of like, we think we do want to just stay smaller, and put different things in place. But I was just thinking about for you, like you're not doing these certain coping mechanisms. And so not drinking, but, I don't know, for anyone watching, like, hey, I guess downsizing was for you, like that puts you in a better state of mind.
Yeah, I had to go back to the source, which was my anxiety. I'm naturally an anxious person, kind of a perfectionist. If you text me, like I'm not the type of person that can just be like, oh, I'll put that off. I can't. Like I have to put it on a list somewhere. I have to put it in a folder. I have to because I've got to get back to you when I have time to get back to you. But I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to be that guy, right? And so I'm already naturally kind of a little bit high strung on being organized. But going back and looking at what it was like before I started drinking too much, when I just used to drink like everybody else, like, oh, I had 2 beers. Great. Cool. That's a night. Right. The thing that I noticed the most was that back in the day is I used to exercise. Like I used to lift weights every day. I used to go running. I used to do all this stuff. Well, I was an employee at that point. I had time to do that, right? I was off at 3:00. I didn't work on the weekends. Like I could, yeah. If I wanted to be at the gym every day at 5 a.m. or be at the gym at 4 p.m. and work out every day, cool, no problem. I was eating pretty good, like all those things. Then when you become a business owner, then it's like, well, you worked 12 hours today and you forgot to eat breakfast, lunch, and you haven't eaten dinner. Do you even want to eat at this point, or should you just have a couple beers, right? Like,
That is true.
so that
time
part
management,
of it, the time management, I mean, I flipped it up on its head and screwed it all up. Time management was a big one. Who you surround yourself with and what you allow people. My personality type is also it's easy to take advantage of me because I don't say no. Right. And so, people are always asking me for stuff, and I was stretching myself too thin. So one of the things that I had to learn is how to say no. Like, I can't do that for you. It's not that I don't want to, I just can't do it for you because it's not good for me. Mm-hmm. Right. So learning when to say no to people. As far as like, what do? I still do all the same stuff. I don't do it as much or as often or necessarily with the same people. Mm-hmm. But I do stuff around the house. I like working around the house. I like doing yard work. I play golf with my buddies. We usually try and play like once a week, and I play in some tournaments, the Chamber Tournament and Darian's Gift and the Firefighters Foundation. Things that are important to me are foundations that I support. I still hunt. I don't hunt as much as I used to, but I still get to get out and hunt and be in nature a little bit. But for the most part, nothing's really changed that much except for the drinking. I don't waste the money. I don't waste the time. I don't waste the health.
Yeah.
The minutes of my life that I'll never get back, they're not wasted drinking anymore. They're doing things that I should have been doing when I was drinking before. So, I got no regrets about what my life looks like today compared to then.
Yeah.
But it's hard to take yourself out of that, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to take yourself out of a moment, stand outside that moment and say, like, what does that really look like? Yeah. And be able to analyze it until you do it. So it's easier for me to go back and reflect now, but I've done a lot of reflecting. I've had to look at like, where did things change for me? Well, the company getting a little bit too big for me too fast was part of it. My anxiety, not paying attention to that, not knowing what I was doing. All those things that played into me getting to the point where I'm sitting in my truck at whatever, I don't know. I don't remember getting in the wreck, but let's just say 11 p.m. at night, sitting in a ditch in my truck that I just totaled. My beautiful truck I loved a lot. I've totaled, and I've got sheriffs pulling me out of the car, to take me to jail. Luckily, my son came and picked me up that night, so I was only in jail, I guess, for like 30 minutes. I don't remember that. But what a shitty thing to have to say. To even talk about. Like, that was me, right?
Right.
I make it sound like I'm talking about, like, in my mind, and like, oh, I'd see that on TV and I'd think, oh, what a loser. Yep. No, that was me. Like, that was for real me. But it caught me off guard, and it caught me quick. I mean, it was like, you project what your life's doing, and then, like you said, your buddy, Willie, just do a 180 real quick in one moment of time, and it changes your whole trajectory of what's going on in your life.
Yep.
Like coach of the year to like being laughed at.
Yep.
Like, how does that happen? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you're not paying attention and your eyes aren't open, like, it can happen to anybody. I mean, it can still happen to me today. It doesn't necessarily have to be drinking. That was my story, right? But, you really have to pay attention.
Yeah.
To what's going on around you. Being a business owner is not just, hey, cool, I make XYZ per month. Not even close.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way.
Now that I think about like the times I've hung out with you, maybe I kind of pride myself in the details and paying attention, but now that I think about it, like, yeah, you never were drinking.
No. Well, and I haven't, honestly, this might be my first time publicly talking about it. I don't know that I've ever really, like, outside of just having a conversation with a friend or in the recovery meeting or whatever, or a family member. This is the first time I've talked about it, but I don't try and like, I've never tried to make other people do what I'm doing. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at me and you're like, hey, Chad, I noticed like you look pretty healthy and and things seem to go good and business is good. And like, has something changed? Like, and I said, well, yeah, I quit drinking. And you were like, hey, well, I kind of want to quit drinking. Will you tell me about that? Yeah, of course I'll tell you about that. Like attraction, not promotion, right? I'm not going to go out and tell everybody they need to quit drinking because it's what's best for them. Yeah. But if you truly wanted to know my honest opinion, I'd stop and tell you.
Yeah.
But I've never like talked about it in this kind of platform.
Yeah.
But I thought it was important because back to that one comment, must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice.
Right.
If you're willing to get messy for the success, because it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, probably not going to find a lot of success. Like you have to get in the trenches at some point. And I've been there, and it's not all that great.
Yeah.
So
you didn't even know that that I've actually been thinking about not drinking anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of my friends,
I mean,
people around me, it's been a really common thing lately. I thought it was just maybe me because I don't drink, but I mean, a lot of people around me are like, I need to quit drinking. And I think being quarantined had a lot to do with that. Hey, like, oh, there's this terrible pandemic going around the world. Everybody's going to die, but we'll deliver alcohol to your house. Wait a second.
The liquor store was open.
Wait, what? They'll deliver it to you. They were literally Ubering alcohol to your house.
Know that, but it was open.
Yeah, just you Uber. Hey, you know, can I curbside pick up some margaritas from Red Robin? Yeah, I guess so. I think a lot of that had to do with that. People and fear and darkness and depression and anxiety and all those things creep in. You pour some alcohol and it just compounds it, right?
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of came out of that and was like, I don't want to feel like that anymore. I want to be awake for life, you know? Yeah. And I think it has developed people's feelings into not, you know, considering like, hey, maybe I just don't drink as much, you know? And some people can, like my wife is one of those people. She will buy a bottle of wine and it'll be in our house for like 9 months. And then one night she'll like pop it on and like, what is she doing with this bottle of wine? She'll pour like a half of a glass, right? And I'm like, she's doing it wrong. This is all wrong. Like, you don't even need the glass. Just grab a bottle. And then she'll drink half of that glass of the half that she just poured. And then the rest of it sits there overnight. And I'm like, you know, we call her a normie. That means like, you know, I look at that and I think like, that'd make me feel really good if I just chug it, right? And she's looking at it like, no, I just wanted to taste it. I'm like, taste alcohol? It's terrible.
Right.
So we're polar opposites, but a lot of people, you know, that I wouldn't consider that I have like an alcohol problem, but people that drink often, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. Right. You know, you get to the doctor and you're reading that stupid little thing. How many drinks do you have a week? Well, I have 1 drink and it's 4 ounces and I only do that once a month. And everybody's lying on the application.
Everybody.
It's like, actually I had 4 drinks last night and they were all 16 ounces, right? And everybody's lying on it because they think they're going to get in trouble from their doctor.
Right.
Those people that I don't consider to have like an alcohol abuse problem, or that didn't get to the point where I got, by definition, if you feel that out honestly, you're an alcoholic, right? Right. By the medical definition of it. But I don't necessarily feel that way. But even those people that I don't think have a problem are like, is it really helping my life? Is it really making me a better person?
Right.
Or am I using it as a crutch?
Right.
Is it my go-to to make something better, or to something that's bad and make it better, like, or to make it go away?
Yep.
I don't know. That's for you to decide. Like,
and that's kind of where like how I process things mentally is. It's almost the next day or two where I'm like, man, you know, like I didn't give my clients or my business partner or my wife or my daughter, like they didn't get my best.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm whatever. And then, I mean, it's, you know, I recently turned 40. So like, I'm like, what am I like? I'm not getting younger. Like I need to maximize my time.
Grandpa Jones.
I need to maximize my time, you know, but then it's almost like, yeah, it was fun last night, but then the after effects, not even major stuff. And I mean, you know, I've driven a few times that I probably shouldn't have been driving.
Yeah.
And fortunately nothing's happened to me in that capacity, but even a lot, you know, not as drastic. I have thought like, man, I'm not even, or I wanted to work out the next day and I'm like, I just don't feel that I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And all those different things that can be affected, that like when you talk about how clear you feel, I've been like, especially because right now I feel like I have a million different things going on. And so I'm like, you know what? Like this week, 4 days, you're my fourth interview in day 4. And I'm like, man, like I need to be clear all the time. Like I need to be, especially as I'm engaging with people in these kind of conversations. Yeah, it's definitely been something like on my mind. But when you talk about being clear and all, and I'm like, yeah, I need to be in that space.
Yeah.
And it's crazy what a pull that it has though, right? Because like probably later tonight, I'm going to be like, oh, I might just have a beer.
Good talk with Chad. I'll have a beer.
I would say, thanks for coming by, Chad.
Novel concept.
It's amazing that pull though, that draw of, and I would almost say I used to be like Jen, like where it was, I could just have one or two, where now more I feel like, it turns into more. And, so, cause I know there's plenty of people out there that it's no problem for them.
Yeah.
They have a couple, no big deal. It doesn't change anything really in their world or whatever.
Are you an obsessive person? Like an addictive obsessive?
Not really. I'm trying to, with certain things that I might, well, for example, like this whole podcast thing. Yeah. I've been every day the last couple months, I've been researching all this stuff. Like I'm in it, but in general, like, no, I'll be able to put this down or put that down.
Yeah. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Like I hop from one thing to the next, whatever my obsession is. And so what I found is that I just have to pick the right things to obsess on, right? And then not only find the right things to obsess on, but then also to put a boundary on that obsession, right? So I've always liked hobbies and collecting things. And so, at one point I was collecting gold, and then I was collecting watches, and I was collecting guns, and I was collecting all these things that interest me, that I have fascination about learning more about. And so I just found how to like kind of harness that. Well, what you'll find is that people that identify as an alcoholic or in recovery, typically 85% of the people sitting in a room like that are talking about that have an obsessive compulsive kind of personality, right? And that could be success. Like there's guys that are like, I just made $100 million and I don't care. I need to make more. Like, and I'm thinking like, oh, I don't need 100 million. I need like $1 million. I'd be happy, But that's their obsession and their thing. But then that spills over into everything else that you do, and so you have to just like, what is important to me? What do I want to be focused on? What can I cut in and out of my life, and find that right balance, right? That's really ultimately my only goal is just to be balanced, well balanced, to make sure that I'm doing the best I can at whatever I'm putting my effort, time, and energy into. Doesn't always work out. Yeah. I'm not perfect.
Yep.
I never have the perfect customer. I never, nothing's ever always perfect. But if I can find a nice balance and I can average through that high and low, it just makes life a lot more easier to deal with and cope with. Yeah. And not be distracted by things that make me anxious. I quit watching news. I don't turn on the TV. If I'm going to watch a show, I'll turn on a show and then I stream it. I don't, like, if I see political stuff in my newsfeed, I don't get into it. Sometimes I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, nope, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And like, it's none of my business. I'll just stay out of it. So I just try and find that middle point, right? Yeah. And just stay in what I know is good for me. But I don't know that I would have ever learned any of that had I not started a business, had I not found the floor. Had I not picked myself up and started the new me, I don't know that I ever would have found any of that. So, maybe I would have, but
that does seem to be a common theme. I think if for anyone listening or watching that are in a low point, and going, I mean, even for myself, as I go through different challenges, I think I've learned enough thus far in life, that typically if I use it the right way, I can learn from this. Yep. There's a lesson here. Yep. I feel like I'm old, I don't want to say old enough, maybe wise enough at this point when I do hit challenges. I'm I'm usually thinking, okay, so what is the lesson here?
Yeah.
Rather than just being frustrated or letting it get me too down, it's okay. How do I pivot? What maybe something's going to come of this I wasn't even thinking.
Yeah.
And which will even be a better idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it usually does seem like. I mean, really, like they talk about, like if you don't know pain, how do you know the joy? Like how do you appreciate that? How do you really understand and appreciate that? And that's kind of what you're saying.
100%.
And I'm sure now with, how things are going, the appreciation level you have now is probably so much greater than you ever did before.
Yeah.
And knowing that it could be taken away.
Well, I think about, I hear stories. I've heard some wild stories since I stopped drinking and go to my meetings, and just different conversations I've engaged in. Somebody drank a beer at dinner, driving home. Somebody jumps out on the freeway, they hit him and kill him, and they go to prison. The person that had one beer under the legal limit, right? Or the person that had 2 beers at dinner, and is driving home. Somebody hits them, and the person in the other car that hit him is injured, and they had 2 beers. Like, you're going to prison. That's your fault. It doesn't matter if they hit you or not. Like, and then you take that situation, and let's say this person doesn't have the means to take the time off work and doesn't have the money to pay for a lawyer, to pay all these fines, or to pay for DUI diversion, all this stuff. What do? Well, they get stuck in that. I mean, they truly get stuck in that, and it takes them 9 months or a year, and then they're depressed because they're stuck in this thing and they can't have their freedom back, and they feel, So
I mean, that's a big point where you're saying, like, you had the resources to do all those things.
100%.
But if you couldn't just take off time, if you
2 hours
couldn't
a day,
just write a check, if
Yep.
you couldn't, that's just putting you even further behind with all of that stuff.
I felt stress and pressure and a little bit overwhelmed from what I had to go through. And I got the minimum of what you can get in a DUI case, the minimum diversion 90 days. I felt overwhelmed with the amount that I had to do. And I hired a lawyer. I did all this stuff. I finished it as fast as I possibly could. I went to all the classes. I did all the tests. I did all the stuff they asked to do. And it was, it took a lot. Like, I was like, man, this is like, I'm a smart dude. Like, I can do a lot of stuff, and I have multiple companies that run simultaneously. Right. I got all these things going on. I get a million things done in a day, and I'm like, this is a little bit overwhelming. But again, like we were talking about those situations, right? My son works for me. He's 21 years old, and something really shitty will happen at work, and he'll be like, whoa, okay, cool. What's the solution? What's, like, this really bad thing happened, but what's the solution? I think this. Yeah, sounds about right. Like, and then he goes and does it, and he's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah. But the cool part is, whatever that is, that situation is, now just stick that in your tool belt and remember it. Mm-hmm. And then that's just, your tool belt's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. Mm-hmm. And if you take those things and pay attention to them, your tool belt will be full. And there will be very few things in this world that could rattle you, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was to that point. I was nowhere near that point. 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I felt like, oh yeah, I know. And then that stuff happened to me. I was like, I don't know shit. I'm actually kind of retarded. Like, I don't know what is wrong with me. Why did I think I knew that stuff? But yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's what they call it, life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I know you're a busy guy. I know you have a million missed messages right now. Dude, you're thinking about it, aren't you?
I worked till 8:30 last night. I cleaned house all week long because I knew I'd be in here, and I didn't know if it would be like a set time. I just figured, I like to talk. Travis likes to talk. It's probably going to take a little while. So I just need to get everything off my plate so I'm not worried about it. And I did. And so that's why I'm here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
As I've been doing this, I've been learning kind of like what this is going look like. And like I said, there was a couple days ago, it went a few hours. But I want that. If some people want to talk for 30 minutes, great. But if someone wants to talk for 2 hours, great too. I kind of want it to be that, and whatever they want to share, and but I know everyone's busy, and so I appreciate you making time.
Yeah,
this has
thank you,
been
bro.
fun.
Thanks
I mean,
for having me.
it's a trip because like, you probably thought I knew kind of that story.
I think sometimes I assume like the people that I see frequently, or talk to frequently,
and honestly, I feel like I had heard something before, but I mean, I wasn't ever gonna just like bring it up or ask you, and I figured if you want to share at some point, you can. But yeah, most of the people that I'm interviewing right now are friends of mine.
Yeah.
But it's been funny.
Yeah.
Because, like I said with Mike, when Mike's like, well, I was a PE teacher for 7 years, I was like, 7 years?
I didn't know that either. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I know Mike Riddle. Of course, yeah, we're buddies. Like, you're a PE teacher? I guess I don't know you.
Yeah, so I think that'll be like the beauty in this. I
Yeah.
mean, as more people watch and listen, I think it'll be neat for all of us to be like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
It'll be really
and
cool.
I'm not necessarily like, I'm not from Salem, but even people that are from Salem, you don't know everyone's whole story.
No, I feel like I know everybody, but I don't know anyone. So
Yeah.
for me, for us to talk about Mike and being a PE teacher,
Right.
like I've known Mike for a lot of years. Like, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
Maybe he even told me at one point. I just forgot. But
Yeah.
it'll be cool to see what that looks like.
I first met Mike because I was at McMinnville High School. So Mike said he's 47. I'm 40. So I believe he finished at Linfield with an athletic training degree. And then his first, like, I don't even know if he was getting paid to do it. It might have just been getting the experience. But he came over to Mac High, where I was attending, and he was in the athletic training room. And I remember that's the first time I ever knew who a Mike Riddle was.
Yeah.
But I knew him under the idea of athletic training, taping ankles, and
So does it make you
whatever.
a celebrity now that you know him and you're friends with him? Is it like celebrity by association?
I'm actually thinking about putting on his title, like something about we even have local celebrities on here.
It's a good idea. He'd enjoy that. He would really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.